Someone did something for you. And no, it wasn't just anything, it was done out of love. A love that perhaps you haven't even noticed. This person, younger than you, wanted to show you what they feel. Without words, without requests, without expecting anything in return. It might have seemed like something simple to you, almost insignificant, but for this person it meant much more. They did this to prove how much they care. Maybe it's someone who looks up to you as an inspiration, who sees in you something even you can't see in yourself. Did you notice? Or did you just move on, distracted, as if it were just another day? This was planned. It was done with you in mind. Not by chance. Not out of obligation. It was done so that you would understand something very important. You are loved. And perhaps you ignored it. It's time to think about this, not about who you think deserves your attention, but about who is already there, trying in every way to show you how important you are, how much difference you make. If you haven't seen it yet, maybe it's because you're looking in the wrong place. This person didn't have to do anything. They could have simply continued with their life, followed the day, kept their feelings to themselves like so many others do. But no, they decided to act. They decided, with all simplicity and courage, that they needed to show you what they felt. Even if you didn't notice, even if you didn't react. And why is that? Because to them you are important in a way you might have never stopped to imagine. They look at you and see something you don't see in yourself. A strength, a light, something that inspires them, something that makes them believe. No matter how much you think you're failing or how lost you feel, to them you are much more than you seem to be. But what worries me, and maybe it should worry you too, is that time doesn't stop. These silent gestures, these proofs of love that don't come with words, don't happen forever. Life changes, people change, and sometimes, while you're distracted, thinking there will always be another chance, a new opportunity, that which was special simply disappears. Have you thought about this? About what you might be missing right now? About what might never come back? This person doesn't expect grand recognition. They're not after a grandiose thank you or applause. But do you know what they expect, even if silently? That you notice, that you see how important it was for them to do that at least for a moment you understand the value of what was done. And I need to ask you something. Can you remember the last time someone did something like that for you? Something that didn't need to be done, something that expected nothing in return, but was done anyway. And if you can remember, what did you do about it? Did you ignore it as if it was something trivial, or did you value it? Because if you didn't notice before, maybe now is the time. This person, younger than you, didn't do this impulsively. It wasn't an accident, it was a conscious act. They chose to show you how they feel, even if subtly, almost imperceptibly, and that takes courage. Because, let's face it, it's not easy to show how we feel. It's not easy to take a step towards someone without knowing if they will reciprocate or if they will simply pass by. So I'm going to ask you another question. Can you imagine how much courage it took for this person to do this? How much they had to overcome the fear of being ignored, the fear that you might not even notice? Because that's exactly what happened. They had courage, they chose you, and you, what are you choosing now? Maybe you're there listening to this and thinking you don't know what I'm talking about, that you have no idea who that person could be. Or maybe you know exactly who it is, but don't want to admit it. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you have a choice right now. You can continue ignoring it as if nothing happened, or you can start paying attention. And before you think this isn't about you, let me tell you something important. This is about you. It's about how you live your life, about how you perceive, or fail to perceive, the people around you. Because the truth is, love, affection, admiration often appear in such simple, subtle forms that if you're not attentive, you'll never notice. And when you don't notice, do you know what happens? The person who tried, who made an effort, who put their feelings out there, begins to withdraw. They start to believe it wasn't worth it. And one day they stop. Not because they stopped loving you, but because they realized you weren't seeing it, that you weren't there to receive it. Is that what you want, to let it slip by? To miss the chance to reciprocate, to create a connection, to value someone who's making an effort for you? Because if it is, that's fine. But I want you to know that choices have consequences. And the consequence of not noticing someone's love is that eventually it stops being shown. Have you ever imagined what can happen when those silent demonstrations disappear? When the people around you stop trying to show you how important you are? It's lonely, and even worse, it's a waste, because the love you could have received, the connections you could have built, simply get lost. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's still time. There's time to look around, to remember who is close to you, who has done something for you without expecting anything in return. There's time to do something different, because in the end, what really matters is not what was done, but what you do with it. Are you willing to notice, to give value, to give back even if it's just with a look, a smile, a simple but genuine acknowledgement? Or are you going to keep waiting for these things to be obvious, clear, spoon-fed to you, because they won't always be? And here is the hardest truth of all. Love, affection, admiration, they are not eternal. They need to be nurtured. They need to be recognized. Because if they aren't, one day they simply disappear, and when that happens, there's no point in wanting to go back. There's no point in lamenting what was lost. It will be too late. You need to understand one thing: life is not going to stop for you to notice. Time keeps running. People keep living. And while you are there, thinking, analyzing, maybe even over-rationalizing, the chance to show that you also care might be running out. Not because the other person gave up, but because no one can wait forever. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to lose someone who loves you in such a pure and selfless way? Someone who did something for you because they really feel something special? We're not talking about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. We're talking about something that came from the heart, something that was done with sincerity, maybe even a bit of shyness, but with the clear intention of showing that you are important. What if I told you that maybe this has already happened before and you didn't notice? How many times has someone tried to reach out to you, to show you what they feel, and you were too busy, too distracted, or simply didn't believe it could be true? This has happened to everyone at some point, and the pain of realizing it too late is something that lingers. But it's not too late for this person. There's still time. You can correct this path now. You can decide to look at what was done, no matter how small it seems, and see what was behind it. The intention, the effort, the care, the love, all of that was there, but it's up to you to see it. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need grand speeches or extravagant gestures in return. What you need is to be present, to stop and think, who is around me trying to show me something? Who has done something for me that I didn't appreciate enough? Who has given me a piece of their heart, even when I didn't ask for it? Do you think people do this all the time for just anyone? No, it's not like that. It's not every day that someone decides to put their feelings at risk, to expose themselves, even in a subtle way, for you to notice. This is rare. It's precious. And when you ignore it, it's like telling the universe that you don't value these things, that you prefer to let them pass by. And now, what are you going to do? Will you continue living your life as if nothing has happened? Or will you stop, reflect, and give this person the appreciation they deserve? Because if you don't do it now, you might regret it one day. You might look back and realize you lost something that will never come back. And when that happens, because it can happen if you don't change now, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt because you'll remember. It's going to hurt because you'll realize that person tried, they really tried, and you didn't see, didn't want to see, didn't have the courage to open your eyes. I am not saying this to pressure you. I am saying it because life is like this, because people don't stay forever, because those who love also get tired of not being seen, of not being heard. And love, even the purest kind, needs reciprocity, not in an equal way, not in a grandiose manner, but it needs it. It needs to know that it is not being thrown into the void. Are you willing to change this now, to do things differently, to stop ignoring what is right in front of you? Because if you don't do it, who will? The responsibility is yours. The choice is yours. And the consequences will be as well. So think about it. Look around you. Remember the gestures, the unspoken words, the moments that seemed small but now can make all the difference. Remember those who cared enough to try to show you, and, most importantly, do something about it. Because the love you receive is as important as the love you give. Both need to exist. Both need to be nurtured. Now is the moment for you to reflect deeply on what this message has brought to you. Think of who has done something for you without expecting anything in return, who has dedicated time, energy, simple gestures, but loaded with meaning, just to show that you are important. That person might be closer than you think. It might be someone you see every day but haven't given enough attention to. And yet they remain there, trying even if silently. What is at stake here is not just the act itself, but what it symbolizes. It's about a kind of love or admiration that doesn't require grand demonstrations, but needs to be perceived. Because perception is the only way to nourish this type of connection. When you perceive, you value. When you value, you strengthen the relationship. And in the end, that is what matters. The relationships we create and maintain throughout life. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times you might have missed opportunities to strengthen an important bond? How many times have you failed to recognize a gesture of affection or a proof of love because you were too busy, too distracted, or simply didn't believe it was meant for you? This happens to all of us, but here's the difference. Some people decide to change. They decide to pay attention before it's too late. And you, what will you decide now? That person, younger than you, didn't do what they did for nothing. There was intention, courage, and feeling in that gesture. It might have been something small in your eyes, but to them, it was big. Maybe it was a look full of meaning, a note left at an unexpected moment, a word of support when you needed it most, even if you hadn't asked. It could have been something even more subtle, like simply being by your side in silence when you didn't have the strength to speak. What matters now isn't the size of the gesture, but its meaning, and your ability to see that. Because when you ignore it, when you pretend it didn't happen or underestimate what was done, the message you send is clear. You didn't notice, and love that isn't noticed begins to wither. Not because the person stopped feeling it, but because, without reciprocity, even the strongest feelings weaken. And here's the most important point. You still have time. You can still do something about it. But you need to decide now. There's no point in waiting for things to resolve themselves or for the other person to keep trying indefinitely. People have limits, even those who love us deeply. And what you do today can make the difference between strengthening a bond or letting it disappear. I know it's not easy. It's not easy to recognize that you might have ignored something important. It's not easy to admit that you may have failed to notice what was right in front of you. But do you know what's harder than that? Carrying the regret of not doing anything when you had the chance. The regret of looking back and realizing that you lost a valuable connection because you were too busy with things that, in the end, don't matter that much. So, what are you going to do now? Will you continue living on autopilot, expecting the love and attention of the people around you to be eternal? Or will you stop, reflect, and act differently? The decision is yours. And like every decision, it brings consequences. Choosing to notice, recognize, and value those who are by your side can transform not only the relationship, but also yourself. Because deep down, that's what life is about. The connections we create and the people we choose to keep close. Everything else, material achievements, professional goals, daily distractions, is temporary. What remains are the moments we share, the gestures we offer and receive, the love we give and accept. Now I want you to do something. Close your eyes for a moment and think about who that person might be. Think about what they did for you, what that meant, even if you didn't realize it at the time. And, when you open your eyes, decide what you are going to do about it. Don't let it pass. Don't let routine or pride stop you from acting. If this message made sense to you, if it touched you in some way, I want you to do 3 things. First, leave a like now. It's a simple gesture, but it helps bring this message to more people who might need to hear it. Second, write in the comments what you felt hearing this. Is there someone in your life who has done something like that for you? How did you react? Or perhaps how would you like to react now? And finally, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, do it right now. It's more than just clicking a button. It's about being together, creating a space where we can reflect together on these very important issues. A place where you can find words that inspire you to be better, see more, and act with more intention. Don't put it off. Do it now. Because what you do today can define your relationships in the future. Someone chose to love you, admire you, respect you. Now it's your turn to choose. Choose to notice, choose to value, choose to act, and remember, love doesn't need to be loud to be real. It can be quiet yet still transformative. You just need to have the courage to listen,